For years, we've spoken about bridging the gender gap. We've debated, we've discussed, but now it's time for action. We take a decisive step forward as we unveil the Future Female Forward, Close the Gender Gap Charter, a blueprint for real measurable change. The Charter sets clear, actionable goals for increasing female representation at all levels of leadership. And to lead this momentous unveiling, it is only fitting that we invite someone who represents a global institution that has actively championed inclusivity and leadership diversity. Please join me in welcoming Hitendra Dave, CEO of HSBC India, to the stage, and let's unveil the Charter. Ladies and gentlemen, keep the applause going as we unveil the Charter.
I am fearless, I'm driven, I'm a change maker. They think they can stop me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Future Female Forward, Close the Gender Gap Charter. And joining them for this landmark moment, we are honored to have some of the most influential voices driving change across industries. Now we turn to the core of our mission, creating equal opportunity workplaces. Research from McKinsey and World Economic Forum proves that diverse leadership teams drive higher profitability and innovation. Yet challenges remain in the form of persistent gender pay gaps and underrepresentation of women in leadership. So what does this mean for India's business landscape? How are top leaders addressing these challenges while unlocking the true potential of diverse workplaces? To lead this important conversation, I request Shireen to kindly join us back on stage and to bring us exclusive insights from the front lines of corporate leadership. It is my absolute privilege to welcome our distinguished speakers, Hitendra Dave, CEO, HSBC India, Rajesh Warrier, EVP Global Head of Operations and Chairman and Managing Director, Cognizant India, Vartika Shukla, Chairman Engineers India. We've also got Prabha Narasimhan, MD and CEO, Colgate-Palmolive India, Rajesh Jejurikar, Executive Director and CEO at Mahindra Group. We've also got Ameera Shah, Promoter and Executive Chairperson, Metropolis Healthcare, and Ashish Dhawan, Founder and CEO, the Convergence Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our panelists. Shireen, with that, it's over to you.
This makes me so happy, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing this for 25 years now, and invariably, when I'm at one of these events, I'm usually the only woman on stage with a long line of men in suits. And this is what we're hoping to do, achieve gender parity, and we've done that starting here on our panel this evening. So many, many thanks to my panelists for joining us here this evening. Hitendra Dave, this started as a conversation that both of us had on a flight, and today, 3 years on, it has become a movement. As you look at where we are today, and Pooja was just giving us the data, while we have mainstreamed the conversation and progress has been made in some areas, there's a long road to cover. It's a long distance to go, Hitendra. From the experience that you've had so far with the movement as well as with HSBC, what's next?
You can argue with everything except facts. Right? So once the facts start to show that this conversation is beginning to have impact, now, we should be proportional in our expectations. I don't expect 10,000 companies in India to look at this program and say, hey, we need to change our diversity or hiring or inclusion policies. But it is very difficult today to be running a reasonable sized business and not be having this conversation. I think I can't believe any board or executive committee or top management teams don't talk about this, right? I think how to go about it, there is a debate. Should we have hard numbers? Like our board, right? I mean, I don't know if everybody is aware here, but we are a fairly large organization globally, right? I mean, 50% of our board is women. And that wasn't done as a conscious DEI thing. It just so happened that 50% of the directors that the bank was looking for were very, very brilliant women, right? So similarly, at some of our senior most executives, I think you are aware, our CFO is possibly not just a woman, possibly the senior most Indian woman in the banking industry, right? She's from India. It's like she's not grown up abroad. She studied here and
yeah.
went there, etc. So we have many stories to tell. But to answer your question, I think we need, and I know you're going to do this over the course of this session in this year, we need the real leaders, women leaders in particular. I think their insights, their stories, what it took them, was it such a significant sacrifice? How did they manage it? You need young girls and women in schools and colleges to get inspired, right? I mean, political leaders, business leaders, executive leaders. So that would be next, where it's, where it moves from being an agenda number 6 to just being a natural. It's like product innovation, or it's like customer centricity, right? When boards and executive managements get to the point where they talk about diversity and inclusion in the same vein as customer or things like that, I think that would be a good.
Vartika Shukla, let me come to you. And we're talking about the private sector's involvement. Let's talk about the public sector's involvement as well. I don't know how many of you know this. Vartika Shukla is a graduate from IIT Kanpur and is today one of the few women leading a public sector organization. She leads Engineers India Limited. So Vartika, I want to understand from you, through your own journey and the arc that you've been able to make, what do you believe has changed, but what do you believe needs to change from here on?
Thank you, Shireen. It's a delight to be part of this very prestigious gathering, wherein we have thoughts from all sectors of the industry and both the genders together, working towards a common goal. One thing that differentiates public sectors, to put in pointers, and we talked about pay parity to begin the conversation about how to bring equality in the workspaces for both men and women. In the public sector space, one thing is very clear. Everybody gets the same pay and gets the same raise. So that settles one part of the issue, which is...
And it's an important issue.
It's a very important issue. Yes. And I have seen that. In fact, I was reading Sheryl Sandberg, and it was... it's a big issue in terms of even negotiations which women have to do in spaces to actually achieve and get what they truly deserve. Going back to the point as to where we are, what needs to be done, I think the one thing is, and if I specifically look at the engineering space, or I look at, there are many disciplines where the parity is already achieved. You look at medical sciences, you look at the legal space, you look at the financial space, IT space. There are good spaces where we have equal representation at all levels, as Mr. Dave also mentioned. But looking at particularly in the engineering space, I think it needs to attract a lot more talent. We need to plug leaky pipelines as we go along the career journey of women. Public sectors are putting in a lot of enablers in terms of policy. We heard the allocation of the percentage of our budget into women development through a lot of programs from various ministries. But to enable that, to put it into force, to actually needs commitment at leadership level, which is there. I'll give you some examples. There are companies in the public sector space who have all manned process plants, who have, like we have now, women in construction, which is not easy as a space to be in. So looking at all these aspects, looking at conscious policy creation, looking at continuous monitoring, making sure that step by step we grow up in the percentage and make sure that we give spaces in leadership position to women. I think that would, in a holistic way, kind of move the needle towards steering their careers to higher decision-making processes.
So this is the good news, that at least as far as pay parity is concerned, the public sector has been able to achieve that. So we're hoping that the private sector takes notes from that. But Ashish, to the point that was being made both by Pooja as well as Vartika, India perhaps has some of the most progressive policies when we talk about women in the workforce, whether it's maternity leave, maternity benefits, or it is gender budgeting, as was just discussed. So capital is relatively less of a constraint today. Why do you believe then that we're still at that 18% number as opposed to the aspirational 30% number that we're hoping to get to by 2030?
No, thanks, Shireen. I think a lot of it has to do with the mindset of our leadership. I mean, the data is very clear that 18% of the 12 million employees in the top 2,000 companies are women. So it's only 2 million women. I think we have to make a pledge that I think the top 2,000 will probably have 18 million employees by 2030. And if we can get to 30%, that's 5.5 million women. That'll be a dramatic change. It's almost 3x in terms of number of women. And these are some of the best jobs, because these are the largest companies in India. I think that even though companies pay lip service to this, I don't think they work hard enough on this issue. Because in every sector, we see outliers, and we don't see companies making the effort to achieve what's already been achieved by outliers in India. So if you take, say, the banking sector, 26% of the banking sector, the workforce are women. But there are 2 banks in India already that have crossed 40%. And there are others that are stuck at 10%. Our neighboring Sri Lanka is at 45%. Vietnam's at 68%. I think we can easily get to 40%. As a sector, if the leadership is committed to it and really wants to make it happen. You know, there are often excuses about women working in branches or feet on street.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. But there are banks that have actually shown that it's possible to make it happen. Similarly, if you look at the pharmaceutical sector, it's only 11% women. But there are pharma companies at 25% and there are others at 2%. So I think what Pooja and team have done is really looked at those outliers to dissect what they've been doing, to make those role models, and companies can actually speak to their peers. You know, these champions, in a sense, are more than happy to share what they've done. And I think what we need is leadership to sign on for concrete targets in 2030. So I, company X, am at 25%, I commit to get to 35 or 40%, share it with the board, and have an action plan you disclose publicly. I think that's what will get us there eventually. And you, Shireen, have to help us to get those CEOs to sign on the dotted line.
So here's the backstory. This is something that we discussed and debated. Should we, as part of the charter, put down a number where we get people to commit to that particular number? And finally, we pulled back because we said that, look, these are things that will perhaps require board approval. These are things that people will have to take to different stakeholders within the organization. So we didn't want a situation where we ambush people, because this is really not about that. This is about getting people to voluntarily sign up and come on board. But this was a discussion that we had between the CNBC and the Udeti team on whether we should put a number down as part of the charter. And we're hoping to get there. We're hoping that this conversation will lead us there. But Prabha Narasimhan, let me come to you now. And you know, my fear today, what we're seeing happen globally, and I did address that in the remarks that I made early on, there's this talk about the tyranny of diversity and inclusion. Do you worry that we're likely to see a pullback, a retreat from some of these issues that require urgent intervention and action?
So thanks, Shireen. I think firstly, Shireen, the minute you combine diversity and inclusion together, I think the likelihood of pullback is very, very low. Because what that says is that we're going to get in people who are different, gender being one of the ways you can get in people who are different, and make sure that they feel included in an organization enough to be able to stay and progress. So I'm really glad that you combined the two words together, because the concern really is, and if I may, to your point, the concern on putting targets is that it signals, whether you mean it to signal or not, that you are willing to compromise on meritocracy. And I don't think there is any woman in this room or anywhere else who wants a suggestion that there is a willingness to compromise on meritocracy. I think the answer may be a little bit to the question is, as you get them in for interviews, for discussions, that the slate is balanced, and then let the best person win to get the job. And if I may, sorry, to Mr. Dave's point on, if I may say to the women in this room and beyond, there are many jobs that we've traditionally thought are not a great idea for women. And coming from an FMCG background, sales is one of them. Attracting women into sales actually is very, very difficult, because all said and done, it is a difficult job. But honestly, it is fantastic learning. And if you put yourself out there, the rewards that it gives you are tremendous. So if I could just urge the women in this room to take these challenges and take some of these leaps, it would really help as well.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that does deserve a big round of applause because, you know, very, very often, because of the biases and because of the societal construct and patriarchy, let's call it what it is, women often abdicate spaces for fear or because it's not in their comfort zone. And I think it is time that we challenge some of those norms. It's time that we challenge some of those roles.